And that's really what I think a lot of this comes down to, is they're experiencing this little thing called adversity for the first time. And when you experience adversity, how do you respond? Do you get up and do you pump your fist, or do you whine and cry and are glad that somebody got shot? And that's what we're seeing here. Let's go move on to our lead story here. Now, a lot of people will say, why are you talking about this? You talk games and entertainment. Well, you got to remember where Destiny started as. Destiny started as a video game player, and he has since pivoted over to insanity. And yesterday, he's also one of the biggest streamers in the world, streaming on Kick. He also makes a ton of money on YouTube. But yesterday, Destiny was banned on Kick. And this happened because of hate speech. Reportedly banned for disrespecting the innocent firefighter who was killed during the Donald Trump rally, during the assassination attempt. And confirmation came from Destiny himself, showing off the email. It says, hey, Destiny, your account has been temporarily suspended to a breach of terms of service. The reason? Hate speech. Now, this will expire at the end of the month, and he is doubled down, never apologizing for the way I treat conserva shits in this country. Real clever, smart guy right there. And you may be saying, like, why? What did he get hit for? Right? Because once again, Kick is kind of his home base right now, in addition to YouTube. But he also posts a lot over on X. And Elon Musk has actually gone in and demonetized Destiny along here. He said, he was thrown out here and he received the email. This is the initial thing. Dear Elon Musk, why are there ads in Omni Liberal's profile? I believe this page is now in violation of the hate or extreme content and sensitive content section of X standards. This means his account should be permanently suspended from X ads revenue sharing program. And this is in response to some things that I don't even think I can say on YouTube that he said over on X. And ultimately, Elon was like, yeah, you're right. This is not appropriate content for advertisers. So he fired back, says, actually, wait, Elon Musk, is this the type of advertiser-friendly content? So he plays like the whataboutism here in the back and forth here. And Elon says, well, it's not me. It's the advertisers who are saying this, right? Which goes back to a lot of this. Arch, you had, and I do want to kind of show the video, which really pushed this over the edge yesterday. Like, we're dealing with somebody who is seriously broken. Like, the internet broke him in a major way. But there is a larger conversation here about cancellations. And Arch, I know your video that you released this morning, I watched it this morning at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock in the morning this morning when I woke up super early. I was like, oh, Arch, you got a great video. And I want to talk about that video in just a second and your stance on this, the idea of cancellations and such. But he was on this show, Piers Morgan, yesterday. And did you see this clip, Arch?
I have. And Jesus, I've rarely seen a man be murdered before. And that was that.
Well, I'll say this. You will find, when I say this guy's broken and with hate in his heart, I can't think, this guy may be smiling, but that's the devil's grin, man, because the way he is speaking, the way he's talking, the zero remorse that he has in his heart for this person who died innocently just for being at a campaign rally is insane. So this is what he said over on Piers Morgan. Labs, have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
On Saturday evening, hours after the shooting, you said, let me clarify. When I say conflicted, what I mean is I lean towards seeing it as a natural extension of the thing Trump and the MAGA kids support. So I don't think I have much sympathy about the attempt enough to chastise people celebrating it. You couldn't find it in your heart to chastise people for celebrating the near assassination of a man who was president of the United States and maybe again?
Absolutely not. Conservatives have completely bled that well dry. And the idea that they, after engaging in the most divisive and most extreme rhetoric that this country has seen in recent history, that they would come on and beg for sympathy, that it's escalated into some kind of violent confrontation is absolutely insane. Even the idea right now of saying, well, if you call somebody a Nazi for so long, it's, what do you expect people to do? I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh call Obama a communist every single day he was on the radio. You've got conservatives that talk about how the mRNA vaccines were ways to.
I don't even know if I can even play that right there. But later on in it, he continues on. And there's a lot of like kicking and punting to the next thing, kind of goalpost moving as he goes along. And he's asked straight up if he has any remorse, and he's like, no, not at all. I have no remorse for wishing that. Which, we're talking about somebody who just showed up to support. Let's say it's anything. A guy at the mall, right? But he has no remorse because the guy was conservative. Anyways, that's ultimately led to him getting banned on Kick. Now, once again, it's a temporary ban. It'll last till the end of the month. Looks like a couple more weeks. Now, Dev, Short Fat Otaku, will actually be on our show tomorrow. And I know a lot of you guys have questions for Dev because Dev made some real interesting statements as well, which Arch, you talked about in your video as well. And we're going to address all that stuff tomorrow, right? With that said, he said, he said, I'm just going to read this verbatim, Dev, hope you don't mind. It says, regarding Destiny's band, I spoke with them a few times, but we're not friends. We have a lot of mutual friends. I know his podcast co-host, and a lot of people have been on his channel have also been on mine. What I've heard is that the Twitter demonetization has basically done nothing to him since he makes all his money on YouTube, and the Kick ban is temporary, so I don't think he cares about that either. The biggest blow will probably be to Bridges, which is a show he set up specifically to talk to people with different views than him and try to come to some understanding. I think he'll find it hard to continue that concept considering just how many bridges he's burned. He said Bridges was actually going well until this. I don't know if he can pull this off. And I agree with that. I think it's very hard to have a show called Bridges when you clearly have a stance on this. But I want to go, with all this context here, we've seen him demonetized on X. We've seen him temporary banned over on Kick. Your video today, Arch, tackled the question of cancel culture as a whole. Specifically in this instance, I would like for you to kind of go into that a little bit and your stance on all this.
Well, I recorded that video at about 6 a.m. because it happened just around that time. And it's an interesting dilemma, isn't it? Because there's so much to begin unpacking here, isn't there? The ban itself, let's begin there. So Kick marks itself as a free speech platform. Okay, what does that mean? And can it use a term like hate speech, which is something I am largely opposed to justify that ban? Do conservatives now get to go like, okay, hate speech, therefore we're going to ban you? All right, legitimate criticisms there. On the other hand, you also need to be aware of reality. These systems are already in place. The stick of cancel culture is already on the table, so you can't be surprised when somebody picks it up and hits you with it. And especially when you have somebody like Destiny as well. And there is a broader spectrum of the left that have been so insulated from consequences of their words and actions. Like just earlier now, you cut off the Piers Morgan video because he mentioned V word.
Yeah.
And because we already know, like, you're not allowed to say certain things on the internet. We have been inoculated with this, badumtish, for quite some time. Whereas his side, they've been used to saying whatever they want. Like you saw the Jack Black thing with Kyle Grass on stage, did you?
Yeah, we talked about that at length.
Yeah, like he expected the audience to applaud. Mm-hmm. It was so obvious. And now consequences is finally coming for their side, and they look just baffled and surprised. Like, hold on, I am being held responsible for what I'm saying online? Yeah, and maybe in a perfect world you wouldn't be, but we're not living in that world. And that is largely the world you created.
Right. So people talk about cancel culture versus versus consequence culture. That's the thing you hear all the time. Cancel culture versus consequence culture, right? And it's one of those. It's definitely an interesting stuff. As somebody who definitely believes in free speech, I believe people should be able to say whatever they want to say, because at the end of the day, if they say something ridiculously dumb, everybody can point and laugh and say that's really dumb, right? People's argument to that is you shouldn't be able to say that, because then that idea potentially spreads, right? And but as somebody who believes in free speech and the idea that you should be able to say what you want, I think by him going on these platforms and having these conversations, it's ultimately if Kick markets itself as a free speech platform, then it should be a free speech platform, right? That's the thing about Rumble. They say it's a free speech platform, but there are people who on Rumble, I know dudes like, well, how can I say this word? Why can't I say this word? And whatever word it is, right? And like that's ultimately up to the platform itself, right? And that's what you see with X. That's what you've seen with Kick. Now, will the same rules be applied to YouTube that they are to Kick and everywhere else, right? We've seen YouTube ban people. We've seen YouTube deplatform people based off things that they've said on other platforms, and even things that they didn't say. Russell Brand comes to mind, where he had his entire channel demonetized for just saying things that were not that didn't toe the line at the time. So it'll be interesting to see if YouTube, carries the same stick as they do for everyone else. And I think that's probably the most fascinating thing about this is we've mentioned the double standard many, many times when it comes to speech. And I think that's what people are looking at. And for the first time, this pendulum has started to shift a little bit, where somebody said something that, that is abhorrent, right? But he still should be able to say it because like I said, at the end of the day, you can point and laugh. I'm not about muzzling people. I think there's also a difference between liking and agreeing with something. Do I like that he was banned for being a total jackass? Yeah. Do I agree with it? Not really, and I think those are two different things, if that makes sense.
Well, there's also the simple fact that after being on the receiving end for so long, I know that probably most, if not all, content creators on my side are kind of sitting there right now, a little smirking like, yes, it would be nice if the opposition got a little bit of the consequences too, wouldn't it?
Oh, sure.
And again, the bubble that people like Kyle Gass was in, like expecting applause for saying, I hope they'd miss. Like, okay, maybe you need a bit of a smack to realize that, oh, I'm not actually living in this bubble anymore. I do actually have to behave with a certain sense of decorum, a certain minimum level. Because I do believe that there is a difference between free speech, where you should be allowed to say whatever you want, and you should, and an expected level of behavior. Like, should you be allowed to make a terrible joke about somebody who died? You probably should, but should we yell at you for it as well? Yeah, probably.
Right. As Hidden Guitar says, free exchange of ideas. May the best man win, right? And I'll say this about Destiny. I don't know him. I've only seen some clips of him. His argument style seems to be just speak really loud and yell and tell you what a dummy you are and how ridiculous you are without actually providing a whole lot of context. But that's worked for him. So good for him. It's funny we mentioned this because the last time he was brought up on our show was when he was talking about Boogie. Was that less than a week ago? Boogie 2988 or whatever. He was on that show and he was talking about Boogie with cancer and stuff. So I think that this is once again for the first time, I would say those that are not extremely left have touched the paddle for the first time, right? It's like they've been holding this paddle, this consequence paddle, for a long time. And for the first time, you just kind of got your hand on it, right? And I know some people, like I saw a super chat that said, you're being way too nice to these people, right? Stop being polite to these people. They despise us. They want us dead. They do not find anything to be too far. If given the chance, they JFK us, right? And Destiny has shown that to be true. The words that he has said, that's what's so hateful about it. And I know you guys think I'm soft when it comes to this stuff. I think I'm more principled when it comes to this stuff. That I don't want. I want to be better than them, right? And I understand the idea of, what's the old saying? Carry a big stick, but use it wisely. Whatever, there's the old saying, and I think it's, there's strength through power, and power through strength. That I think you need to show in this situation. Just because you're buff, just because you're strong, just because you have a black belt, doesn't mean you have to use it. The idea of having the black belt is so you don't have to use it. That's why you learn self-defense, right? And maybe and once again, I feel like I'm being way too, I know some people will be like, you're being way too idealistic when it comes to this stuff. You're being way too naive. And I understand that. Do I think that the things that he has said are absolutely abhorrent and evil? 100%. I think he is just a bad person who the internet has got a hold of, and he is in a bubble that has driven him to just throw out nonsensical dribble, right? That ultimately there should be actions, but ultimately the market will decide. The market will decide his fate. And these platforms are helping decide his fate. If he receives a longer ban on Kick, cool, But as pointed out by Dev, most of his revenue comes from YouTube, so he's probably just going to laugh it off. He's getting what he wants now. He's being talked about. He's getting publicity, and so good for him on that. But he's also been labeled as an absolute asshat, and really just a hateful person. And, you can see success, but really at the end of the day, I don't want to be a person who's seen as having hate in his heart, whose wife is drilled by other guys.
See, there's an interesting thing there. You actually put it very well there. A principled position where you can kind of enjoy it and also oppose it at the same time. Because yes, we should be better than them, but there is also the political and reality necessity of going, okay, you've been attacking me for 10 years, I'm going to hit back now. And again, even if in the best world we wanted to just go like, okay, everything's forgiven, water under the bridge, they still put the stick of cancel culture on the table. It's not going away. And YouTube is his main source of revenue. Yeah, but, well, I know quite a few people who have been demonetized for actions taken off platform. And I wouldn't be too surprised if a lot of platforms are looking at the current right-wing cultural impetus and wondering if they've backed the correct horse in this race. And Destiny, if I was him, I'd be worried because he's made an enormous target out of himself. And I've seen people get banned off YouTube for a hell of a lot less.
I actually very much agree. I think that he's put it's a horrible pun, but it's accurate. He has put a target on himself for just the abhorrent things that he said. Like, that's shitty. Like, what a piece of shit. And that's at the end of the day, we talked about this a couple days ago. The masks have slipped on so many people, whether it's the gaming space, whether it's the streaming space. You're seeing people for who they are. And now we have, for the first time, some consequences there. Will we see those consequences, trickle down from Kotaku and Geo Media? Will they say, hey, we don't want our writers being so divisive? Probably not. But it'll be interesting to see if anything does come of it, for sure. Bulk Scott, go ahead.
As a final thought,
Sure.
I do believe that a lot of this too is that quite a few people on the left, and probably Destiny as well, they have seen their world order be upended very quickly. The assassination attempt, all of this has changed the cultural impetus drastically and dramatically. And like a lot of us were watching it, like Trump's amazing photo with a raised fist and going, okay, he just won the election. And I think a lot of them might be coping with that. They're like, okay, we had a race, and I was like, oh shit, well, okay, we've lost. What do we do? And they're coping with that, and they get angry and they get upset and they start acting out, lashing out, not thinking. And yeah, you get a lot of weird stuff then.
I'll say this. I think they're experiencing what the other side has experienced for the last 4, 5, 6, 8 years, right? And that's really what I think a lot of this comes down to is they're experiencing this little thing called adversity for the first time. And when you experience adversity, how do you respond? Do you get up and do you pump your fist, or do you whine and cry and are glad that somebody got shot? And that's what we're seeing here. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I'm glad to see some actions being taken here. And like I said, am I happy for it? Sure. Do I agree with it? No. So it is what it is. It's their platforms. They can do what they want with it.